This is a follow-up to a video we did earlier today about the bombshell revelation that Trump cabinet officials accidentally leaked highly sensitive war plans to a reporter. And I want to show you two MAGA Fox News hosts who are visibly struggling on air to spin the fact that the Trump administration is complicit in the most egregious national security breach in modern American history. Makes Hillary Clinton's emails look like a walk through the park. But before we unpack all that, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bells before you go. All right, friends, we have two clips to look at here, okay? And I actually want to start with a more egregious example. Will Cain, okay? Will Cain is the most MAGA of the two MAGA Fox News hosts I'm about to show you. By the way, piece of trivia, which might explain why he's doing what you're about to see, he is a former co-host of Pete Hegseth. Pete Hegseth used to be a co-host on Fox and Friends Weekend. He's now our defense secretary. He is directly implicated in this scandal, so that might explain why you're about to hear what you're going to hear. But brace yourselves, because this is maximum weapons grade cope.
To another big story today out of The Atlantic, where their editor-in-chief Jeffrey Goldberg has reported that he was accidentally sent sensitive information about military strikes in Yemen. The messages come from 18 national security officials. They were sent through the encryption app Signal, and there are indications that they appear to be authentic. I think there are two takeaways from this story as of what we know today. One, it is incredibly concerning that sensitive information.
So I wish I would have paused it there in time. I wonder, what do you think the two takeaways are? What do you think they're two sensitive they're two takeaways here? I wonder, can you predict what they're going to be?
What we know today. One, it is incredibly concerning that sensitive information would be sent with a journalist included in the thread. We can speculate, and there is reasonable, fair expectation that somebody like Jeffrey Goldberg was accidentally included under his initials, JG, who was meant to be included was a trade chief, Jamison Greer. But if it was accidental, and we'll wait to see if this was accidental, it is incredibly concerning that this information would be shared over the Signal app with the journalist included. But the bigger takeaway for me is it's an insight, a transparent insight into the thought process and dialogue of our national leaders. If you look at the actual content of what was reported, if you look at how they discuss potential strikes on Houthis in Yemen, what you will see is dialogue between Vice President J.D. Vance, Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth, National Security Advisor Mike Waltz, Stephen Miller, Tulsi Gabbard, and many more, in a very collaborative, open, honest, team-based attempt to come to the right decision after years of secrecy and incompetence. If you read the content of these messages, I think you'll come away proud that these are the leaders making these decisions in America.
He's so full of shit. That's so funny. He's like, I think you'll be proud. I think you'll be proud. The incompetence of the Biden administration as your cult. I mean, look at his face, right? This is the look of a man who knows that he is full of shit, that he's engaging in moral inferiority. And Will, if you're watching, please be sure to like and subscribe. You are morally inferior, because if we just scratched out the party affiliation of the principal players in this scandal, you'd be pissed, and we would not be giving them the benefit of the doubt. You would be giving them no charitability whatsoever. You know that your party is morally inferior to mine, that your party is more incompetent than mine, that your party is guilty of hypocrisy, the likes of which Democrats are simply constitutionally incapable of. Hillary Clinton would be incapable of this level of incompetence and hypocrisy. Compared to Donald Trump, J.D. Vance, Pete Hegseth, Marco Rubio, Tulsi Gabbard, Michael Waltz, stunning. And you can see it. He can't even deliver this persuasively. Will Cain's a smart guy. He's a smart guy. He knows that if the shoe were on the other foot, he would be having a radically different take, if for no other reason than they're the libs, and you've got to own the libs. Two takeaways. One is fair questions to have about maybe leaking this to a member of the press when it's sensitive war information. But the bigger issue is, like, what about that collaboration? What about how they were like sharing emojis with each other, like, a fist emoji and a flex emoji, and a prayer emoji? And what about when they collaboratively discuss how Donald Trump might not know what he's talking about? That there's some inconsistency in the strategy, like that part where J.D. Vance, the vice president, was like, I don't know if Trump's got like the full conception of that. I'm not sure he quite understands, what's going on here, if he's truly considered the implications of this. Maybe that's the takeaway, like how collaboratively they shit the bed in front of the American people. Pathetic. Again, we all know if the shoe was on the other foot, this would have a radically different tenor. And Fox has been relatively quiet about this. Imagine if this were Kamala Harris, Joe Biden, Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama. Hell, it doesn't have to be this. Obama's tan suit got more condemnation from the likes of Will Cain and his MAGA Fox colleagues in the pre-MAGA era. The hypocrisy and the double standards, there's nothing like Fox when it comes to it. Nothing like Fox. But Will Cain's not alone, right? As he's doing everything in his power to summon what little credibility he has to persuasively deliver this cover for his former Fox and Friends weekend co-host Pete Hegseth, who should probably, return to that instead of like being in charge of national defense. What about John Roberts? John Roberts of Fox News. This is more of a credible news guy, right? Well, even he is struggling. He's desperate. He wants to spin this so bad. But unlike Will Cain, even he is more willing to acknowledge that this was a screw up.
So let's bring in John Roberts, my colleague, co-host of America Reports. I don't know who was on this text thread, John. It doesn't sound good. What have we learned about it?
Well, let's just put it this way. It was not bad from the perspective that the operation against the Houthis that was launched on March the 15th was compromised at all. What's bad about it is that there were 18 people who are on this text chain who are highly ranking administration officials, national security, like the vice president, Marco Rubio, the secretary of state, the director of national intelligence, the CIA director, Pete Hegseth, the defense secretary, Michael Waltz, the national security advisor, and apparently Jeffrey Goldberg, who is the editor-in-chief of the Atlantic magazine. Now, I would think that there probably are worse people that you could text your secret plans to, but it appears that Goldberg has acted responsibly here in writing this article, and while he outs a lot of the process of what happened, he did not specifically publish the war plans as they apparently were transmitted to him by Pete Hegseth the morning of the attacks against the Houthis.
Okay, let me come back to that. Roll this bite from the former Defense Secretary Leon Panetta. Here's what he said about it, John.
Somebody on the Atlantic got the most sensitive emails you can imagine at the federal level. That is a serious blunder. It has to be investigated, and somebody, frankly, needs to get fired.
We'll see if that happens or not. Signal is one of these apps where you're supposed to be able to message someone in secret. I don't know how secret it is, John, in the end, or how private it might be, but a lot of reporters in Washington use it, and a lot of members of government use it as well, do they not?
Well, I've talked to some folks in the intelligence community, retired from the intelligence community, who believe that Signal still is pretty much protected. Like the Russians and the Chinese have not hacked into it just yet. So it's likely that the communications between this group were secure. It's just the idea that you accidentally invite into the group the editor-in-chief of a magazine that's not particularly kind to the Trump administration. National security was compromised from the standpoint that you did invite an outsider who doesn't have top secret security clearance into the group. But nothing else untoward happened. But I'll tell you, this would count as a BFD, according to people that I've talked to, and it will likely be looked into quite thoroughly.
It's what we call a misfire, and if you could take it back, you would.
Yep.
Again, I'm giving Roberts more credit than Will Cain, because at least he's willing to say BFD for big fucking deal, right? He's willing to be a bit more explicit, but even he's hedging, man. Like, they didn't compromise national security in the sense like, as far as we know, the Russians and Chinese didn't hack it. That wasn't even the concern, asshole. The concern was that these people are so stupid that they would CC a reporter with non-top secret security clearance or relevant security clearance at all in this information. That's the problem. This other bigger problem may not be an issue. Yeah, that's not what we were focused on, number one. And number two, the operation actually went through successfully. Yeah, because the person they accidentally leaked it to wasn't a malicious actor. It was Jeffrey Goldberg, right? That was just sheer dumb cosmic luck, not any sort of strategy on there. They deliberately leaked it to somebody who wasn't going to actually weaponize it or sell it to an adversary or give it to the Houthis to try to defend against this attack. This is weak shit. So again, that's why I say these two, Bill Hemmer, John Roberts, also MAGA, right? They might be diet MAGA compared to Will Cain, but MAGA nonetheless. And that again, if you just scratched out the name of the party affiliation and slapped Democrat instead of Republican, or and you could have Lloyd Austin, former Secretary of Defense under President Biden, Secretary of State Antony Blinken, and whoever else, Jake Sullivan, former National Security Advisor. If those names had been attached to this, if this story had happened a year ago and Kamala Harris had been on there instead of J.D. Vance, oh my God, imagine. They would have, you know how there's Fox News and Fox Business, two separate channels, like their sister networks? They'd have to open up a third channel. It would be Signalgate. It would be the Fox Signalgate channel where all they did is just cover this scandal. But these clowns that paid a nearly $800 million loyalty tithe to Trump a couple of years ago because they are so unparalleled in their dishonesty, their partisanship, their incredulity, their lack of credibility, they're doing this. They're doing everything to grade him on a curve, and they are desperate. They are so desperate that you will too. Hey, listen, instead of focusing on the security breach, focus on the fact like the person they accidentally leaked it to didn't use it against them, and like the operation itself was successful, and they were totally collaborating, right? They were getting along. Like there was conversation in between the emojis. Like please don't use this against them. Pathetic. And Democrats should pounce on this relentlessly, viciously, nonstop. When they're on camera, when they're on the Senate floor, when they're in a congressional hearing, your answer to every question, elected Democrats, should tie right back to what time is it? Well, it's time for Pete Hegseth to be fired after he, was complicit in the most egregious national security breach in the history of the United States, which is objectively far worse than anything Hillary Clinton did. It's time for Democrats to get a plan to retake the House, because on day one, if Democrats retake the House, two things happen. We're going to introduce articles of impeachment against Donald Trump, start impeachment hearings, and we're also going to have hearings where we haul these losers in before Congress and humiliate them in front of God and country. That should be your answer to shit like this. You should be relentless, nonstop. Do what Republicans did over Hillary's emails, because this is actually objectively far worse. Pathetic stuff. Tomorrow, Luke Beasley and I are going to go and do a full-blown react to MAGA's reaction video where we get deeper into the weeds. But I saw these two Fox News hosts, and I'm like, we're definitely going to talk about that first. In the meantime, let me know what you think in the comments.